we have to understand what the experience of consciousness by consciousness feels like. And it feels like joy, happiness, enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And that's the experience of God. That's the experience of the sacred. That's the experience of true love.
I feel some attachment, and then if I think this is only now, and then, like everything just opens up. And yeah, if you could talk about it.
Yes, the first comment I would make is that obviously reality is experienced only now. The future has not come into existence, and the past doesn't exist any longer. So that which doesn't exist any longer, or that which has not begun to exist, cannot be experienced. Really. So only the now is real. That's the first. And as a result, we forget the irreality of our projections into the past and to the future that are only thoughts. And in a sense, we live in a dream. That's the first observation. Second observation is this, is that the separate entity we believe to be exists only in relation to the past and to the future. In the now, there is only what is in the now. There is never a separate person in the now. In the now, we are one with whatever is being experienced, and whatever is being experienced as a result is what we are. And the third comment I would make is this, is that as a separate entity, as I said, we live into the past and into the future because in ignorance, what is now is deemed to be insufficient, is deemed to unsatisfactory. There is a sense of lack. And this sense of lack seeks its resolution in the future in the form of an event that is going to happen, that is going to bring a resolution to this sense of lack. Or, in the case of fear, the desire for an event not to happen in the future, which will bring a resolution to this sense of lack and fear and desire. So that these are the three aspects of time. The second one and the third one are intimately related to the belief to be a separate entity, and they are what could be called psychological time. The first one, this realization that reality is only experienced now, is, in a sense, a pathway to reality itself. I say it is a pathway because if what is now is envisioned only as phenomenal experience. We forget the noumenal part of it. We forget the consciousness aspect of reality. Since reality is only in the now there is consciousness. So consciousness and reality are indissociable experientially. But if we forget this presence, then the now is truncated, is reduced to the phenomenal. So, the path to reality is twofold. First, the understanding that past and future are not real shrinks the possibility of reality to the now. But then, this now can be envisioned in two ways. Either just the phenomenal now, which is very elusive, or the full enchilada of the now, if you will, that includes our presence. So from this phenomenal now, then we move to presence. And presence is not limited to the phenomenal now. The phenomenal now is a limitation of presence, is that which gives presence, which gives the now its elusive quality, like of zero duration. You see, of zero duration. When we move beyond from the now to presence, we move from the apparent instantaneity, this elusive quality of the now, which has zero duration, to eternity, to presence. And presence is then no longer conditioned by time. You see, presence is beyond time. So consciousness, reality, is beyond time, experientially. So then we understand that our true nature is timeless.
And that's why, for example, in mindfulness, it's very focused on the phenomenal now, right? Like,
yes, that's a problem of
taste,
this
what you're
approach.
eating or whatever, but you're missing the presence.
It's only, it can achieve kind of once the first step of reducing, understanding that past and future are not real. But it doesn't take us beyond, you see. So then it requires an effort. In the old days, there was something that was in fashion, which was macrobiotics, but it came with a kind of philosophy of mindfulness with it. And so mindfulness is this attention to the phenomenal now. So let's say I'm drinking some tea, so I'm very aware that my hand is grabbing the cup, right? My hand is grabbing the cup, and then I'm taking it to my mouth. I feel the contact of that with the mouth, and then, in fact, there is nothing in it. And then, you see, for every moment to moment to moment, being one, desperately trying to one with the perception, and this desperately trying to be one with the perception is the forgetting that no matter what, we are already one with the perception. You see? Mm-hmm. And then there is a letting go of the mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately, as I often say, mindfulness in many cases, depends what it means, but in many cases, it's full of mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also I noticed that whenever I see reality in this fresh, only now way, there's also like this not knowing aspect very alive, because it's like I'm no longer, for example, seeing the tree with the information of the past, but it's just, like beauty and just
Yes, that's a different. Okay, and that's something that it's what I call, in fact, the artistic view. The artistic view, because there are two kinds of not knowing. The first kind of not knowing is the one I define it, which qualifies meditation. Meditation is when we don't know what we are. So if we don't know what we are, it doesn't mean that we cannot play music, that we cannot compose, that we don't know what a minor scale is, right?
Yeah.
And things like that. We have access to all this knowledge. So it's a very selective not knowing. There is only one thing that we don't know, is what we are. It's open to everything else. The second type of not knowing is what I call absolute not knowing. And it is the not knowing of the newborn child. The newborn child doesn't know anything about the world that is appearing to her, right? Doesn't know mathematics, doesn't know music, doesn't know anything, doesn't know about distance, doesn't know about the moon or about the plastic toy which is hanging above her head. That's absolute not knowing. We forget. We put everything we know between brackets, so to speak, and we rediscover the childlike view. So I call it the artistic view, because that's a position of creativity, of not knowing. And it's interesting to have this ability to go back to it. It could be, in a sense, a place of rest for us between activities, But it is not. It should not be understood as being the constant way of living our life, because in daily life we need some knowledge. We need to use knowledge, right? So it is the first kind of not knowing that is the one that is, if you will, the prerequisite for peace. The other one is, as I said, a kind of default state we revert to when we don't require activity somehow.
Yeah.
You see? It is a contemplative state. Yeah. And it is very important to have the opportunity and the capability to go there. And especially, that's a place of creativity for an artist.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that in some way, if you don't know what you are, even though you are doing something with knowledge, there's still this background of not knowing.
You can be interested in what you are doing. You see, you can be fully interested, fully in what you are doing, but at the same time, there is no suffering.
Yeah.
And the absence of suffering is not because what you are doing is a distraction that takes you away from it. You see, that's very important to understand. The French philosopher Pascal, he describes the human condition, as a distraction from God. And he, in one of his writing, he describes people playing the tennis of the period. And he describes that as he calls a diversion, divertissement, something that takes you away from God. But no, it may be the case if we are in ignorance that in order to forget this sense of doom, this curse, in order to forget it, then we do something. Like we take drugs, we get drunk, or we play tennis, or we do something like that, right? But that's only if our activity comes from a sense of lack. But there is another activity, and that was Pascal's problem. There is another type of activity that comes from pure joy. Pure, and Pascal himself, he was a physicist and a mathematician and a creator and a beautiful writer. Perhaps he didn't realize that his doing mathematics or his writing could be, in a sense, construed as a form of escape, right? But because there was his interest in him, this joy of discovery, of gold digging or mushroom picking enjoyment, the moment it came from enthusiasm, it was sacred. It was no longer forgetting God in the object. It was more being with God, with the object of enthusiasm, with the object, like a child who loves his toy and he's with the toy. You see, the moment there is the love, there is God present in this love. The moment there is joy, there is God present in this joy. The moment there is enthusiasm, there is God present in this enthusiasm.
Beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely. And the other thing about time that I saw in today's meditation is that at what point when you were talking about the expectation and everything, is like I kind of felt that the teachings or the spirituality or whatever, it was kind of in the time realm. But when I was this innocence presence, like there was no teaching or something like that. There was no spirituality or something.
Well, you see, we have to understand what the experience of consciousness by consciousness feels like. And it feels like joy, happiness, enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And that's the experience of God. That's the experience of the sacred. That's the experience of true love. The experience of love is not despair or attachment no. That's the experience of ignorance.
Yeah.
That's why we first have to discover this within, and then we have to implement it or allow it for it to implement itself in our daily activities. And so we have to become very protective of our enthusiasm. And every time we feel effort, we feel that our heart is not in agreement with whatever we are doing, you see, then we have to think twice. We have to try to move away from that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have to live our life in agreement with our heart and with our intelligence.
Thank you.